Welcome back to the channel. My name is Colby Van Camp here with Ryan Gilbert of GoPowerCat.com. Ryan is also an alumnus of Wildcat 919. Ryan, I appreciate you taking time out of your Friday to come and chat with me about the big game that Kansas State has coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, Colby, thank you so much for having me on. I always appreciate it.
So, first of all, Texas. Everybody has picked Texas to win. I was watching it on ESPN last night. They picked Texas to win. They said, Kansas State, they're doing some really good things, but Texas is just too talented. It's the same old story that we've heard over and over about Texas and all of their talent, which they are very talented. You can't take that away from them. They are very talented, but they've underperformed with their talent. Their coaching has gotten better, but everybody is picking Kansas State to be upset at home by the Longhorns this Saturday. And first of all, I'm just curious as to your reaction behind a lot of those statements. As a member of the media, as someone who gets paid to write articles about Kansas State athletics, how does that jive with you and just the overall feeling coming into this game on Saturday?
Well, that surprises me for some people coming out of Manhattan to say that, because I feel like the general vibe around here is that Kansas State's going to get this win. Nationally, obviously, people focus on Texas, that brand, the talent they have. So I'm not surprised by that. But people around here in Manhattan seem very confident in this game. And obviously, it's fair to say Texas has the talent, but I think it's fair to say K-State has the coaching to offset that as well. So, it's whatever you think is more valuable in a game, I guess. But there's reasons to bet on Kansas State. You look at what they did last week. If they perform, if that performance on Saturday coming up is anything similar to what they had last week, they're going to steamroll Texas, right? On the other
Yeah.
hand, Texas is coming off a bye week. They're well rested. They've still got something to play for. A path to the Big 12 championship still is there. They've got a game against K-State, and the next week they've got TCU. If they win those two games, they're probably have their sights set on reaching Arlington in the Big 12 championship game. So this is a meaningful game. I know both teams have a couple losses on their resume, but the season's far from over for both Texas and Kansas State.
So, first of all, the thing that everybody seems to be talking about on the national stage, and frankly, I don't put a whole lot of stock into the national stage. The talking heads, they have good insights, but then sometimes their takes are just hilariously bad. And part of me wonders, as someone who's now just getting into the media, it's kind of like now you get paid. You're like the meteorologist, right? You get to get up and talk about the weather's going to do this today, and it totally doesn't do that. And you just get to go ahead and talk about that. But Kansas State, their defense. So they have 11 interceptions. That leads the Big 12. It's tied for ninth nationally. And then the number of points given up last week, obviously, they blanked the number 3 scoring offense in the country. And then points allowed per game by Kansas State since it switched to the 3-3-5 in 2021. They're only allowing 19 points per game, which is really impressive. That's a stout defense. That's a stout scoring defense. And so I'm very interested in your opinion on the matchup between Kansas State's defense and Bijan Robinson, Quinn Ewers, and Xavier Worthy. Being able to lock those 3 guys down is going to be key to shutting down their offense.
Yeah, and a lot of what K-State does with Deuce Vaughn, you stop Deuce Vaughn, you got a good chance to beat K-State. I mean, that's not always true, but more often than not, right? That holds to be true. Same thing goes with Texas, with the playmakers that the Longhorns, do have. And, K-State's defense is banged up, the secondary is banged up, but I don't think that really stopped them last week, with the injuries and all that stuff going on with TCU on offense, that obviously held them back. But last week, I know we're talking about defense here, was no problem really at all. So, I mean, Quinn Ewers has been inconsistent this year. When he's been good, he's been great, and I think he deserves a compliment there. But also, 3 turnovers in the loss to Oklahoma State. I think it's fair to say he lost them that game. Maybe the coaching, wasn't the best, but he's inconsistent, he's sporadic, and he's got a high ceiling, but he's got a low floor, right? The number 1 player in the country in the 2021 class by 24/7 Sports. I don't think he needs much of an endorsement on how good he can be, but obviously the Longhorns do have 3 losses. He hasn't played in all their games. He's been banged up with a shoulder injury on his non-throwing arm. So Kansas State's defense, has a test, ahead of them on Saturday, and Texas does have weapons. And like I mentioned with Kansas State, it's Deuce Vaughn, and then which Will Howard are you going to get? Which Adrian Martinez are you going to get? And same thing holds true with with Quinn Ewers. Which one are you going to get? We'll find out on Saturday.
So I'm very interested, and I'm glad that you talked about the quarterback situation, because right now, again, Colin Klein talked about it's going to be a game time decision. We don't know who's going to be taking snaps at quarterback. My personal opinion is Will Howard, the NCAA has ruled, you now get 4 games before you have to burn your red shirt. They keep talking about, well, we don't want to burn his red shirt. And I'm like, you're not burning his red shirt. I mean, he's only played in 2 games. If you play him for a third, he still has 1 more game left in the pocket. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that. Frankly, I would put Will Howard out on the field. I think he's earned the right to be on the field after the way that he's played the last 2 games. And I think that you ensure unequivocally that Adrian Martinez is healthy and that he's ready to go. Obviously, Adrian brings experience that Will doesn't have. He brings a gamemanship that perhaps Will has found to be inconsistent so far. And I think that that's going to be a very pivotal decision that Kansas State and the coaching staff is going to make. But if it came down to me, I keep leaning into this idea of quarterback controversy. I don't think that there is going to be one, but put Will on the field. You're still not going to burn his red shirt, and then ensure that Adrian is 100% by the time that you get into the final 3 games of the season, and give Adrian the opportunity to earn his spot back. Not that he lost in the first place, but to get his spot back on the field on the road, because that's when that kind of experience is going to be key.
Will Howard's definitely got the hot hand right now, and there's no doubt about that. But I don't think anybody knows who's playing. I don't think Chris Klieman even knows who's going to be a starting quarterback on Saturday. Howard's got the hot hand. He's playing better, and he opens up the offense a little bit more with his passing abilities down the field. Martinez has been much more of a runner this year. That's not really a knock on Howard or Martinez. They're just kind of having success in different ways for K-State's offense. And it's interesting. You look at Howard coming out of high school, this is what we expected from Howard as a recruit, a guy that can be accurate, air the ball downfield, and make those plays through the air. When we saw him in 2020 in that COVID season, Howard was making most of his damage running the football. So I feel like, things have come full circle for Howard now, that he's finally airing it out once again. And I think that's why he was brought to Manhattan. Martinez, I don't want to put words in the coaching staff's mouth, but it'd be tough to bring a guy like that to Kansas State for one final season, and essentially guarantee him a spot to start, right? I know there was competition in the offseason. They're never going to say that, but it'd be hard to just go bench a guy like Martinez. But you look at what Howard's done. I mean, he's played like a Big 12 starting quarterback, no doubt about it. So either Martinez or Howard, whoever's on the field for Kansas State, I would feel confident that they're going to perform at a high level in this big game. But again, I've said this, quite a few times this season. What if Martinez just throws an interception, right? That could really just rattle his confidence, because he hasn't done that all year. And what if he goes back to his ways at Nebraska and tries to make, corrections on that, and then that turns to another mistake? He's forcing things. I'm not saying that's going to happen. If Martinez does go, I would believe that he has probably a shorter leash than he had a few weeks ago, given how good Howard has played. I also believe that if Martinez is not 100%, he's a good enough teammate, like we saw last weekend, and going up to the staff, a couple minutes before kickoff and saying, hey, I can go if needed, but I'm not 100%. I might be 95%. I'm not 100%. I think that shows how good of a teammate he is, and how connected that locker room is. But to go back to the main point, I don't know who's going to start. I would be pleased with either option. I think the leash is shorter for Martinez than it would be for Howard. Just because if Howard does get the start, that means Martinez probably isn't, fully 100%, but they're keeping a lid on it. Tried to poke around in the press conference this week, as and didn't get much answers from Colin Klein or Chris Klieman. So it'll be a fun situation to follow. And, I don't think we'll know until kickoff. Last week it looked like Martinez was ready to go during warmups. It really did. And lo and behold, he didn't see the field at all. And with regards to Howard's red shirt, I agree. Even if you burn the red shirt, he's still going to have 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. And then you've got a 4-star Avery Johnson coming in, right? And you're probably not even going to have that much of an issue if Johnson has to go in as, a redshirt freshman or sophomore, whatever the case may be. The only real concern is you play Howard this week and you want to keep his red shirt. Well, then, what if Martinez gets banged up as the starter in the Big 12 championship game in Arlington, and it's a 1-score game. The backup might only go in for a few plays, but, we saw what Jake Rubley did in Fort Worth, throwing an interception on it, his only pass attempt, one of few for Rubley. So it's you can't predict the future, but you can obviously do what you can right now. And I agree. I don't think, burning the red shirt is going to be that big of a deal. If you can save it, great. But, if Howard continues to play it at this level, who knows what's going to happen. So there's so many options and different routes and avenues we can go down this rabbit hole with. But overall, the answer, I don't know who's going to play quarterback, and it shouldn't matter because K-State's a good team. The gap between Martinez and Howard is very small, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree that the gap is nominal between Adrian and Will. So I'm glad that you also brought up kind of mentality and how you want to go into games and how you want to position yourself for success. And Chris Klieman talked a lot last week about how Kansas State was successful because they believed they were going to be successful. They believed they were going to have a dominant game against one of the best offenses in the NCAA football, FBS, Division I, whatever you want to call it. Right now, Oklahoma State, number 3, they came in and they blanked them. So I mean, that's a really impressive statement. That's got to be fantastic for your psyche if you're that team, if that's you playing on the field. But to go with that, I mean, ESPN has an over, I think it's close to 65% chance that Texas beats Kansas State. That's how they have it listed right now. And then Kellis Robinette tweeted out earlier today that 65% of bettors have bet on the Longhorns winning in the matchup tomorrow. So I think that this is a perfect opportunity. Kansas State, despite the rankings, despite the better record, despite being at home, is still the underdog. Kansas State always seems to do better when they play as the underdog, to have that chip on the shoulder mentality. Deuce Vaughn talked about it earlier today, and he said, it's not the number 13 that goes out there and wins the game. It's us. We go out there and win the game. It's not the ranking, it's the players. And that's how you have to always remember it. So what is your opinion of just kind of the disrespect that the national media has given Kansas State? I mean, they're ranked significantly higher than Texas. They just did an incredible game against Oklahoma State, and they've said, wow, that was awesome. Fluke, check. And they've checked that off, right? And said that Kansas State's going to get smacked around by Texas. So what's your opinion there, and just kind of the underdog mentality and how Kansas State plays with that?
Name on the front of the jersey, to answer your question. Texas has a much more appealing brand nationally, for whatever reason that may be. We can get all into all that at another time, but it's because it's Texas, right? That's a big reason why. And you said, what, 65% of the bettors are on Texas, and relatively speaking, obviously that's more than half, but certain games can get up to 75, 80, 85% of tickets on a certain team. So it could be a lot worse. I think that Texas, there's a lot of Texas fans out there, so that might be a reason why, is that they're just betting on their team. And you mentioned the win probability from ESPN or whatever that was. You know what? You would hope that those are unbiased and it's just looking at statistics and all that stuff. But you've got to realize that algorithm was created, right? And odds are that it was created to favor teams like, Texas and Alabama. Texas was, the ESPN FPI loved Texas coming into the year. And, some of these algorithms, they might be slanted just a little bit. So you can take those, just with a grain of salt. But I understand why, Vegas or the numbers, people out there like Texas. I'm a big believer that one game does not define a season, and the recency bias really shouldn't come into play, because Kansas State easily could go out and, have an emotional hangover following such a big win. And just, this could be a letdown opportunity. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it easily could. On the other hand, K-State could go out and have all the momentum in the world following such a big 48-0 victory over Oklahoma State. So, it could go either way, but I don't think it's just a lock that, you look at K-State, they just beat a top 10 team by 48 points. They're going to beat Texas. Now, that's not really how it works. The body of work, for an entire season is much more important. And, Texas, all 3 losses have come by 7 points or less. They lost by 2 points, 1 point to Alabama, They lost an overtime game to Tech, and then they lost to TCU, like I mentioned, when they or was it Oklahoma State? Excuse me,
It was
when they
Oklahoma
blew
State.
that lead. Yeah, so I'm not saying they should be undefeated, but maybe they're a little closer than their record might have you believe. Um, so you can form your own opinion on that however way you want, but there's a reason that this line, maybe it's just that Vegas wants you to hammer Texas, and they know K-State's going to win. Who knows? But there is a reason here that Texas, that the line is so close to even as it is.
Yeah. Fantastic. I appreciate your time, Ryan. And I appreciate you jumping on to speak with me on the channel. It just broke 200 subscribers today. Gregory Hauser, actually, a Wildcat 91.9 guy, was the 200th subscriber. I texted him. It's like, hey, that's pretty cool. I got the notification on my phone. So, hey, I appreciate all of you who have supported this channel. Ryan, thanks again for coming on. Go check out his work on gopowercat.com. Definitely worth the subscription. And yeah, I appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing what the Cats do under the lights tomorrow night. What's going on YouTube? It's Colby Van Camp. Thank you for sticking around to finish out my video. It means a lot to me if you'd hit the like, smash subscribe, and ring the heck out of that bell so that you never miss another one of my athletic coverage videos. Again, looking forward to our next time. See you soon.